Hello everyone, good morning. This is Vijay Kumar. Welcome to ethics paper analysis session. So in this paper, we would like to discuss crucial things that have been there with this particular year. So how UPSC has been following from past few years and what changes that it has brought this year. So what is the core area when we talk about this paper? So from where they have focused on and what are the areas that more or less that they have neglected. So the change or the pattern shift in UPSC questions, along with it, a detailed discussion on each question. So what this question is about and how to understand that question. And as well, we will also see what broadly has to be there in that question to get at least a decent marks and how we can fetch a little bit more marks compared to others. And apart from that, when we talk about the second session or second half of the paper, that is case studies. So we will also discuss that what that case study is about and is there any kind of repetition in UPSC patterns and what areas that they are mostly focusing on and how to solve those ethical dilemmas. So these few things that we will address, and after that in the later half of the session, we will also see the importance of this paper with respect to the overall clearance of this exam and how to make sure that our name in the final list. So how this particular paper would help us to reach that. So these are the few things that we will be discussing today. Now, without any further delay, so let's go ahead and see what this paper is all about. Now, if you look at this year's questions that they're asking, now just give me a minute. Okay, so if we look at this year's pattern, so we can observe that based on the values, just a second, sorry. Based on the values, if you look, there are multiple questions. Nearly 4 questions are from the area of values. Means they're asking what this particular value is about, or they're asking how this value is important for public servant and how do you cultivate those values. So value-based questions. Specifically, they deal with 1 or 2 values that they ask, or they might ask as they're asking in this year that so list out all the values that you think that are important, or list 5 important of that, 10 important of that. So sorts like that. These are actually very easy questions in this sense that you read about those values specifically in the theoretical classes. So all you have to do is to connect those values that you're reading in the class to the real life examples. So value and examples. So that we will see when we talk about the questions. And the next set of questions that we have is a statement-based question. Just like every year, this year also they have asked a statement-based questions, and that we have three questions, which means that for 30 marks, we have a statement-based questions. In this type of questions, what they do is they give a statement of some famous philosopher or a thinker. And they're not asking the opinion of that particular philosopher. Rather, they're asking, what do you think? What is your opinion on that particular statement? What is your stance? Do you support it? Do you oppose it? Or where do you think that this statement is applicable in the real life? Or what circumstances that these statements are applicable? These statements are real. So, and how can we make sure that those statements go very well in the exam? So for that, just be with me for the next couple of minutes, or let's just say for the next 30 minutes, we will see and how to improve these statement-based questions and how scoring they are actually. Okay. Next one is about applied ethics. So this year, surprisingly, UPSC has asked 2 questions directly from applied ethics. So we are learning the concept, but we have to see how we are applying to some other random topic that is there in the real world. So this year they have asked under this about technology. So how technology and ethics coincide, whether it's a smooth reaction or a smooth relation, or is it a controversial one? So all that sort of things that have been asked. So we can see that there are two questions from this applied ethics. So nearly 20 marks that we have got from theoretical aspects. And the rest, if you see, it's a very well maintained balance that one question from each sections like emotional intelligence, the attitude, aptitude, ethics in administration. So it's a very balanced question paper. But if I have to add a few points to this one, that it's a fairly distributed paper, means it's not that some topics that you neglect and some topics that you read. It's not like that. You have to be thorough with each and every topic. And not only that, just reading and just understanding of the topic is not sufficient with this year's paper. What it requires is how you're going to see through those ethic lenses the real world. So through those lenses, how you are seeing the real world, how the things changes when you see from those lenses. So it's like that. The importance of this paper highlights that the practical knowledge is very crucial with respect to ethics paper. So that's what we are going to analyze today. Next, apart from this, if you ask me, so what is the difficulty level of, or how do we judge the difficulty level of this paper? So we would say that it's moderate to difficult type. It's not very easy, definitely. It's not way too tight as well. Most standard topics has been asked, and most standard way only they are asking. So it's moderate to difficult level, slightly leaning towards difficulty, but moderate. And apart from this, the area of focus is mostly on the examples as well. So be thorough, people. Examples plays a very crucial role, especially this year's paper highlighted that very much. At every point, we have to give the examples. And the paper was considered as lengthy because we have a very limited time and a very limited word limit. In that, they're asking too many things to address. So that is why a consolidation of knowledge combined with a practical experience is the need of the hour. Okay. So without any delay, so let's try to see this year's paper. Question by question, we will try to analyze. If we go to the first question that we have, sorry. Now, if we look into the first question, the question says that identify 5 ethical traits on which one can plot performance of a civil servant, justify their inclusion in the matrix. So the question is specifically asking about ethical traits, 5 ethical traits. So first of all, you need to understand what is ethical traits for that. And next, they're asking about these ethical traits for civil servants. They're not asking about random individuals. They're not asking about any specific public servant. They are asking about, in general, for a civil servant, what ethical traits should be there. And not just that, there is one more key word that we should not forget, that is performance. Means how these ethical traits impact the performance of a civil servant. This is the core of the question. And not just that, they are asking us to justify. Means if we say that these are the ethical traits, then you have to say why, and you have to say how. Why that ethical trait is important for a civil servant, and how it impacts someone's performance. So you need to write that. Not just that, you have to combine it with the examples. Okay, so for that, if you have already prepared for ethics subject properly, so you know that what is ethical traits. To just give you a brief view on it, ethical trait means it's the quality of someone's character. So what are the characteristic performance of you with respect to ethics? So it's about that particular part, what characters that you have, especially when we talk about ethics, and how good that they are, or what are the ethical levels. So this is what exactly that they're asking about. Now, there are so many ethical traits, right? So it's not just 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. We have many ethical traits, like integrity is there, perseverance is there. If you want me to write, I'll write. Integrity is there. So perseverance is there. So we also have emotional wisdom or emotional intelligence. You also have that reverence is there. And other things like compassion. So you can write many actually. So I cannot even tell you that how many are there. That's why it's like you're going into a supermarket and out of many vegetables, you're choosing 5 of them. So it's as simple as that. It doesn't matter which one that you are choosing, okay? Because you remember only, let's just say 5 out of many things that are there. All you have to do is whichever that you are choosing as an ethical trait, you have to specifically explain that why they are important and how they impact someone's performance, a civil servant's performance. For example, let's talk about compassion. So compassion is nothing but your attitude, or your, what we say, it's a combination of attitude and your willingness to work for others. See, when we put ourselves in someone's position, we call that as empathy. So once you understand someone's emotion, then that generates some kind of psychological tendency to help others. So this psychological tendency to act in a particular way for others is nothing but compassion. Now you have to explain what that is. So we have explained. Then you have to explain that why this particular compassion is important for civil servants. So civil servants, so they should not always go by the rule book. Sometimes the rule may be silent on particular areas. So at that time, we have to step outside this law book to fill the gap between these rules. So for that reason, every individual should have compassion towards the weaker sections. So for that reason only, that UPSC has introduced compassion as one of the foundational values. One of the foundational values in attitude chapter. In one of your chapters, they have mentioned it specifically that compassion is a foundational value. So you can choose one such traits and you can explain them. And you can also give an example. So once you write that compassion, and you have writing all the things, then you can and you should explain or give an example. Okay. So for example, a public servant should have to choose between the sticking to the law or stepping outside the law to the help of the need of the poor. So give an example of it, and then the things goes ahead. Understood? Now, if you ask me to address this question, there are a couple of ways that you can do. Okay. Let me clean the slide and we'll go. Now, in order to address this question, so when we talk about introduction, in the introduction, you will be talking about what is ethical traits. What is an ethical trait? This is a very easy way of starting any question. So definition. If you do not want to start with the definition, and you can start with any similar quotation that is that deals with the ethical trait. You can start with the issues. Now, after the introduction, when you talk about the main body, you have 2 options here. Either, so 5 important ethical traits are. 5 important ethical traits are. So you are giving that subheading and you're writing like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can write in this manner, and later you will start explaining. First one, compassion. So then you will be explaining the things. So this is one method, but there is another method. Instead of doing this, what I would suggest is, once you're done with the introduction, then go to the main body and you can write that ethical traits by giving the subheading if you want. And first one, compassion. without writing, without listing them all at once. Instead, what you can do, since we have the space limit and the time limit and word limit, so write the compassion as a subheading and then go with it. Compassion, why is how the overall performance of the event, and then you can write an example. That's it. Then go to the second one, integrity. Understood? So in this way, you can write along with example. So this could be your structure. Okay. If you do this, yes, most of the things are done. But some people keep asking, sir, what is this matrix? The word matrix means. Guys, do not worry about these kind of terms. It's observe the tone. They are not actually talking about some matrix. They are specifically asking that how it is important in the understanding of performance, in evaluation of performance of some civil servant. That's it. They're not asking any mathematical calculation. They're not asking about some equations or some tabular forms, nothing of such sort. Okay. So do not worry about these kind of terms. Just understand what the question is asking and what is the tone of the question. Understood? I hope this is clear. Now, if we go to the next question, let's see. In the next question, they are asking about identify 10 essential values. In the first one, they are asking about 5 ethical traits. In the second one, they are asking about 10 essential values. See, there is a very minute gap between essential traits or traits and values. So you do not have to worry much about it because traits are innate in nature and values can be acquired. So, but overall, the gap between these two are very minute. So they are interchangeable. So if you have used some values in the first question, you can use them in the second question as well. For example, integrity. So when you're writing, so you can use the word integrity again, there is no issue in it. But make sure that the content that you're writing is little different. The tone or the wordings are little different from the first question. If you replicate the same things, so it doesn't give a good impression to the evaluator. So better use the same topic, but explain it in a different words and use different examples. So that could be the better solution here. Okay. Now here they are asking about 10 essential values for effective public servant, which of course we have to talk about. See, when we talk about public servant and his values in the subject, learning multiple use that knowledge as a reference. It's better, it's always better to give the reference. So when you're writing introduction, when you talk about what are values or how values are important for public servant, then in the introduction give the reference like Nolan committee. You can also give references like second IAS report. You can also give reference like a national training policy. So you can give multiple references. So you do not have to give all, but you can give one or two. So these give authenticity to your answer. It converts your answer from general to technical. So it's better, it is advisable. Now, once you finish with the introduction with these things, then we will come to the main body, correct? So there in the main body, again, you have a choice of listing 10 and then writing, but it's not a good way. The best way in this one is again following giving the title and then explaining. But remember, guys, the question is not just about 10 essential values. The question is about something else as well. That is the reason why you should not waste much of your word limit in this particular one. Okay. Since there are 2 questions in this particular question, so you have nearly, let's just say 70 words to address the first part. For writing, let's just say if you have to write 10 ethical values, then 10 means 10 lines at least it will take, and each one will be of 7-8 words, means it kills there. Without even writing anything, you're losing 70 to 100 words. So that's the difficulty of this question. It's the very easiest question, but the difficulty is you have so much to write, but you have to concise it to very small. So that's why in this question with integrity, just one sentence and one example. One sentence, one example. So each value, one sentence and one example. Next value, one sentence and one example. It has to be very, very crisp. But if you feel like, if you really feel like you are unable to cut it short for word limit, then you can omit examples of few values. You can do it. Instead of omitting for all the values, better I would suggest that the few things that like reverence or perseverance. So with these things, give at least one example. So there, instead of giving for integrity in these people, sorry, at these places, give the example there. So little less use values in the system. So that would be much better. Next, coming to the half of the question, it asks about, here is a little trickiness lies. Describe the ways and means to prevent non-ethical behavior. How do we prevent non-ethical behavior? How do we prevent non-ethical behavior? Now, to look into this particular part, there are two ways. To observe this, you can observe in two ways. One is in the usual way where everyone sees that they address only behavioral part. They observe only behavioral part, but there is another angle to this where they observe the attitudinal part. See, I'll give you an illustration. Every action or behavior depends on the action, sorry, depends on the attitude, right? So if you are in a particular matter, which means that you have that particular attitude. Now, attitudes depends on one's beliefs, thoughts, emotions on that particular object. So that's why in order to control the behavior, you need to control the attitude, which in turn asks us to control the beliefs, thoughts, or emotions towards that particular object. So that's why here addressing this particular part has two elements, two coins. Either you can choose one or you can choose the other, and choosing both is very tricky because word limit again, that's the issue. But a widely accepted one and widely prevalent one is in the subject when you're studying, there is a concept called as approaches to ethical compliance. Approaches to ethical compliance. In this particular topic, you will be talking about, you will be learning about three different approaches. Different approaches. Compliance approach. Next one is integrity approach. And you have one more, that is fusion approach. Fusion approach. Now, these are the three approaches that you will be learning. You can use these approaches to address this particular question in compliance approach when you are framing rules, regulations, and these things to make sure that people follow a particular and a minimum standard. So that's compliance approach. So how do we make sure that non-ethical behavior will be omitted? By framing rules and regulations and make sure that no one is doing unethical things and like that. Like compliance approach talks about it. Now comes the integrity approach. Typically talks about not just minimum standards, rather one has to try to achieve the maximum standards. So that can only be possible that if we give proper training to the people on how can we maximize, how can we inculcate the ethics and values, how can we follow those ethical principles in our real life, in our public life, and how can we achieve the maximum standards of it. So this is what the integrity approach talks about. So then comes the fusion approach, which is a mixture of these two, where we will be forming the rules, regulations, at the same time we will be giving the integrity, means we will be giving the training, necessary training for betterment or better build up of the person's behavior. or character, to be precise. So this should be augmented with proper check mechanisms. Check mechanism means how can we make sure that people are accountable? So we need to have a proper compliance mechanism like CVCs and strengthened RTIs to make sure that the accountability and transparency exists in the system. So those are also required. So you can add those things as well to support your answer. As I said, you have a lot to write and we need to concise this specifically. That's where the challenging part is. Understood? Now going to the next question. So in the second, okay, now let's look at the second question. Second question is a clear-cut example of how you are using ethics to see the real world. It's as I said, ethics is kind of a lens through which that you look at the real world. So this particular question is talking about that sense. Let's look at the question and let's first understand what question is asking about. Most of the students come to me by asking that, sir, what is the exact meaning of this particular question? So let's first try and understand this question and we will see what could be written in this question and in a proper manner. Impact of digital technology as reliable, impact of digital technology as a reliable source of input for rational decision making. Rational decision making is debatable issue. Critically evaluate with suitable examples. Now, if you look at the question, they are trying to connect the digital technology with ethics. So what is digital technology? That you already know it. So we are using it in this digital world. So starting from your mobile phones to your laptops to Internet of Things, everything falls under digital technology, even your nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, everything falls under this. Now, this particular digital technology, could we use it as a reliable source for our decision making? Not just any decision making, but rather a rational decision making. A rational decision making. So can we use it as a reliable source or not? But the question itself says that it's a debatable issue. Everyone knows that it's not applicable always and it is applicable sometimes. So the question itself says that it is debatable issue. Now, how we are going to deal with this kind of question? First, you need to understand what is a rational decision making. In the introduction, if you ask me, so the best way is to talk about the rational decision making. To give an overview of how do we take rational decisions. For example, the rational decision should be based on logic, should be based on reasons. Okay, should also be considered as inclusive. So rational decisions are those decisions when instead of accepting blindly, you have to ask, you have to go with the reasons. So you need to apply. If someone says that getting up early in the morning is a good thing, if they say so, you need to ask them the question why and how it is good. So you're trying to find the reasons and you're applying your logic. So that is nothing but rational decision making. So in your decision making, so are you relying on the objectivity or not? It's one more characteristic. Are you relying on observable facts or not? And are you applying your logics? Are you trying to find out the reasons and trying to include everyone in it? So this is more or less, we call it as a rational decision making. So obviously, needless to say, for a public servant, decision making rationally is very, very crucial. Correct? So instead of some subjective interpretation, a rational decision making means, or the objective decision making is very crucial. So that is the reason that this question is trying to highlight when we take rational decisions, how do we take it? Can we say digital platforms or digital technology is a reliable source for our decision making? So for example, if I say that why one has to get up early in the morning. So if you do not know the reasons, obviously what you do, you open the Google and you try to Google it and you try to read multiple articles on it. And then you will say based on the articles that yes, it is good, or because of these things, it is good. So based on some evidences, you are thinking that it is the right thing. And where did you get this? From the digital technology. Understood? So this is how we rely nowadays too much on digital technologies, but without understanding the fact that sometimes relying on digital technology could lead to problems, could lead to issues. I'll give you a few examples. Let me tell you that nowadays we have a WhatsApp and YouTube and many things. Since the information is unlimited and freely shared, what we do is we, as a citizens, we completely rely on these kind of informations without verifying the fact that whether they are actually correct or not. If something comes on the WhatsApp status, we immediately start forwarding it without realizing, without analyzing whether it is ethically correct or not, whether, not forget about ethically things, whether it is actually correct or not, right? We do not know whether it is actually correct or is it a fake one. So we, without even knowing, we forward the fake news. Now, fake news forwarding is itself is a criminal offense in India now, but without knowing it, we try to forward and keep sharing. Now, when someone takes decision on based on these fake news, then how can it be a reliable source for a rational decision? Understood? So it has its own limitations. So our job is to talk on both the sides for this question. So when you write the intro, in the intro, try writing about the rational decision making and the components of rational decision making and how important it is for a public servant, more or less. Next, when it comes to the main body, in that, try to write how digital technology helps positively and how it impacts negatively our decision making. Nowadays, we have been discovering ourselves in such a way that whatever the Google says, we consider it as the right one, but it may not be always, right? Google and its artificial intelligence and its data collection and its interpretation relies on only one side, what is being reflected on the social media, what is being reflected on the digital media. They are calculating your behavior on that. I'll tell you an example. Amazon, or even for that matter, Facebook or Google, they judges our preference levels based on what we search. So on Amazon, whichever the products that you try to look for, so they keep a record of it. Even the Facebook, even the Google, they keep a record of it and they try to interpret it. Based on these things, they interpret what is your actual behavior, what is your attitude. But does it give the entire or all the time, does it give the actual behavior of ourselves? We are human beings, not just data. We are human beings with emotions. So that varies from situation to situation. So it cannot predict, it cannot be a completely reliable source when we deal with the other human beings who are emotionally and socially controlled. So that is the reason that we have to talk about how digital technology is helpful in taking rational decisions, because you can access the rightful information of the government, not just of India, so the other governments as well. So you are able to use that authenticated report, so you can take decisions based on that. But it, at the same time, it creates the problem like a fake news or means what we say, cultivating the hatred. So it can be used as a mechanism to destabilize the society. Correct? So that's why we have to talk about the both aspects here, and we have to analyze it critically, as I said. So the pros and cons of it, the positive side and negative side. So clearly and with examples if possible, not if possible, since they have explicitly asked with suitable examples, I would recommend to give at least 2 examples each. At least 2 examples. If it is 3, it's fine. If it is 2, try to maintain it as a minimum one. Okay. So for the positive side, give 2 examples. And from the negative side, give 2 examples. In this way, you're trying to achieve the balance in your writing. Okay. But remember, if these examples are from the real life, much better instead of the hypothetical ones. Okay. Some IAS, some leaders. So taking some decisions based on internet or digital technologies, or using the drones to perform particular tasks. So that can also be there. Okay, and of course, how fake news can increase the hatred as another example, giving the Muzaffarnagar issue. So likewise, try to give examples which are happening in the real life. Clear? Okay, so let's go to the next question then. Now, when we talk about the next question, so in this question, again, this one leans towards values, though it is not exactly about values, but yes, it deals with values. What kind of values? The values that are not being mentioned in our syllabus. Innovativeness and creativity. So this particular question talks about how crucial it is a person or a public servant or a civil servant should have innovativeness and creativity to solve the ethical dilemmas, or resolving ethical dilemmas. So this is what the question is about. But again, as I said, they're asking about the examples. Whenever they mention or justify with suitable examples, give examples, illustrate with examples. So whenever you see this particular word, then try to write at least 2 examples, not just 1. When they are not mentioning that, then you can mention only 1. That's fine. If you're mentioning 2, well and good. Okay. But when you're mentioning example, please do not consume too much of word limit. Happens in this way that when we say example, some students write as 3-4 lines or 5-6 lines for one example, which is not advisable when you have too much to write in a very short words. Okay. Now, in this question, if we ask what should be the intro should be based on this particular part, ethical dilemmas. What is an ethical dilemma? When such dilemmas come, dilemmas could happen or comes when you have to choose between 2 rights or 2 wrongs. See, the situations are in such a way that sometimes we have to choose between 2 rights or 2 wrongs. If we choose any one right, let's just say this is right number 1 and this is the second right, which is the correct one. Both are correct, both are justifiable, both have its own pros and cons. Now you mandatorily have to choose one side. So if we have to choose one side, and if we choose one side, then the other side would go definitely wrong because we are not addressing it. So that is the reason that we should try to solve these ethical dilemmas or crisis of conscience, to be precise. So with innovativeness and creativity. Innovativeness and creativity. So if you ask me, so sir, what could be the, what we say, dilemmas that we can get? So let me give you an example. That is, let's talk about 2 wrongs. If some culprit did something wrong, some heinous crime. So what is the law says? The law says capital punishment. Let's talk about the rape cases. So if it is a heinous crime, means if it is done in a most inhumane manner, and gang rapes of minors and these things, gives the maximum punishment, that is capital punishment. Capital punishment. Now, is capital punishment is correct? Should we kill someone because he has done something wrong? Or should we not kill the person? So this particular part creates an ethical dilemma in judge. The concerned judge, they faces this particular dilemma, that is the life. The individual person's life, is it right to take? Gandhiji rightfully said that an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. So killing some person because he killed someone else is not a solution. So this is one part where you have to kill, though the judge knows that it is wrong. They have to do it for the greater good. If they don't do it, so then obviously the culprit will go away. So which one to choose? If we kill, again, that's wrong. If we are not killing it, again, that's wrong. So which is the right one? Now, under such circumstances, when you face these kind of ethical dilemmas, what you need to do is use your innovativeness and creativity to solve the problem. There are so many people who have brought reforms to prisoners, like Kiran Bedi. She has done tremendous work when we talk about prison reforms. So that could be a middle path. That could be a balance between, or that could be a way to come out or to deal with these kind of ethical dilemmas. Understood? So that's why whenever you face such kind of ethical dilemmas, so use your innovativeness or creativity to solve that particular dilemma. For example, compassion versus maybe organizational standards or organizational ethics. Compassion versus organizational ethics, or organizational ethics versus integrity. So this is also another problem. Or private life versus public life. So that is also problematic one. So in all these kind of dilemmas, the question is saying that innovativeness and creativity plays a very crucial role. Okay. So we need to cultivate that innovativeness and creativity to solve these kind of ethical dilemmas. And I would recommend to at least write 3 ethical such dilemmas. Like, as I said, with respect to capital punishment, you will face this judgment. And maybe if we talk about the other ones, like organizational ethics versus compassion, and development versus growth issues. Next, the other one that you can write is, for example, personal interest versus public interest. So there are many ethical dilemmas that we face in each day. So we have to address, take any one among these and write that an explanation with example. Next, again, write the subheading and explanation and example. So this should be the mode. And I would recommend take at least 3 such dilemmas. Okay, 3 or 4. 4 would be even better if you could write it up. So 3 such dilemmas, but explain the dilemma properly after giving the example, after giving the subheading, and then give the example to make the things much better. Understood? Remember, giving example is very, very important when they are explicitly asking for an part and part. Okay. Now let's go to the next question. Now from this onwards, for the next 3 questions, what we are going to see is statement-based questions. Now I would like to add one thing here. When we talk about statement-based questions, be little careful, students, that we are not asking the opinion of Swami Vivekananda in this particular question. The question is not asking about what Vivekananda is having or what thoughts that he's having and what's his opinion. He is not asking that. The question is specifically asking that what these questions mean to you. So for you, what do you understand, or how far that you think this statement is correct or wrong? So what does this statement mean to you? What comes into your mind when we look into this statement? So that's what the question is asking about. So if you didn't read about Swami Vivekananda, do not panic in the exam, because they get statements from many people, many. So there are infinite people that are there who have spoken on many aspects. So it's not our concern to read, or we should not also to read those many philosophers. Rather, what I would recommend is when you read about the philosophers, try to read at least 5 to 10, 5 is little, 8 to 10 or 8 to 15 philosophers, and then frame your or build your character, build your opinion on each topic. If you're talking about Socrates or if you're talking about Plato, listen and learn that, but frame your own opinions on those topics. Like when Plato and Aristotle talked about virtue or virtue ethics, what's your take from that? So how far that you agree, and where do you think that one should use it? So, and how you are going to use it. So in this way, cultivate, connect those moral philosophies with you and frame your own opinion. Once you do it, your philosophical stand increases from the present level. Remember, we are not trying to be complete philosophers. We are not doing some PhD in philosophy. What we are going to do is we are trying to raise our present philosophical stand to a new higher level. We are not saying that 100%. We are just, let's just say if we are at the 10% of philosophical stand, we are trying to raise it to 30, 40 or 50%. That's it. Okay. So once you do it, you have framed your own, you have cultivated your own thought process. Now, whichever question comes or whichever statement comes, you give your own opinion. So that's what is exactly required. So if you understand this question, so this question is also about the same thing, that what you understand from the statement and how you're going to apply it to your real life. Let's look at the question. Every work has to go through hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Hundreds of difficulties before succeeding. Those that persevere will see the light sooner or later. This question is all specifically about a particular value. Now they are asking perseverance. So how crucial it is and how it is helpful. You can pick up any one particular or one or two real life people who have perceived a particular thing throughout their life and they have achieved success. Okay. So you can address this question at multiple levels. At the national level, you can do it. At the state level, you can do it. Or at the individual level also, you can do it. So if we talk about this perseverance, you can talk about what we can say at the individual level. If you see any one particular, do you remember this Metro Man of India? Metro Man of India? SRIRAM. Correct. Now you are talking about one individual who have faced multiple problems, but he didn't give up. He persevered till the end. So that's why we have a beautiful metro line connectivity in the Delhi. Why? Because he faced many difficulties and he didn't give up. So that's what it takes to be when we talk about perseverance. And being an UPSC aspirant, every aspirant should have this particular quality, because in this journey of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or 8 years, or 10 years of time span that you spend, what happens is most of the time people lose concentration, people lose interest, and they get deviated. All the things, they get so many deviations in their life. So many difficulties that they face. In your real life, of course, you can connect that how many difficulties that you are facing to study, to sit in the class. And this particular class itself, if you are planning to sit, you know that you have many other diversions or many other difficulties to sit, maybe internet issues or maybe many things, mobile connectivities, or you have some other classes to attend, or your free time with the family is getting stake. So you're compromised for those, or you're compromised on those to achieve something greater. That is also nothing but perseverance. So that's what you need to write in this particular question. Understood? Now you can write at the national level as well, that how constantly India is trying to work on its national, what we say, targets like education, poverty. And not only that, if you talk about the international level, speak about India's nuclear program. Constantly we tried and we achieved, isn't it? We were actually banned, we were sanctioned by many countries when we talked about when we first went for Pokhran tests. But India constantly tried and became a nuclear power now. Correct? So that is an examples wise that we have to explain. You have n number of things to write. Consolidate it and structure it. Either write from the individual to the international, or write from the international to the individual level, how perseverance plays a crucial role in one's life. So that's what you have to do. Okay. Now, if we look at the second question, next question in the third one. So that talks about we can never obtain peace in outer world until and unless we obtain peace within ourselves. A very, very powerful statement that we have to say. See, we try for many things. We try to attain what we say, peace. We talk about the peace at the international level. We propagate that one should, peace and harmony should be there, and the constitution propagates that. But all of things is only possible when we have peace within ourselves. If we do not have peace, how can we give happiness to others? when you have peace within yourself, you feel happy. You'll not feel controlled by some emotions. You'll not feel controlled by some desire. So that is what it takes. Having peace within is a very crucial one if you have to acquire peace in the world. So that is what exactly the question is asking. Now, in this, you can connect many things, right? How can one control their desires? How can one control their emotions? To, let's just say, a robber, or a thief. That particular one, that particular desire to theft for money is controlling him. He won't be able to acquire peace ever, for this reason that if he robs something, he might feel happy for a short time, but he again wants to acquire more, or he will be in the constant dilemma, or we will be in the constant what we say thoughts that he might get caught. So for these reasons, those kind of illegal practices or the things that harm yourself internally will never get you peace. So one should acquire internal peace if you have to give peace for others. So if you want your family to be at peace, first you need to have peace within yourself. Let's just say that you're bringing so many pressures from your work to the home. Do you think that your family will be at peace? Definitely not. We are constantly giving the pressure from the office to the family. And the same, if we take the family pressures to the work, we won't be able to do justification to that our job. Correct? So that's why having peace within always plays a very, very crucial role. So that's what we have to write. Okay. Now coming to the next question here, the life doesn't make any sense. Life doesn't make any sense without interdependence. We need each other. And the sooner we learn it, the better for us. Now, this question is a very interesting one in the sense that it's a very broader term. You can write anything into this. So for example, if we are writing in the intro, so what we write the how or the role of interdependence. But in order to write this, you have to realize that what humans are. You have to write it. Human beings are actually social beings. Human beings are social beings. Means they always try to be within or with someone, within a group or with someone. So we always want to be interacted with someone else. So we depend on many. You might be thinking that you might try to cultivate your individuality. I can live myself constantly. So I don't need anyone's help. But that doesn't gonna help. That doesn't gonna work. See, you might be thinking that I don't have to think about others. I'll do my job and I go ahead. But is it going to happen really? Let's just say that you are a scientist. You are a scientist and you are developing a particular drug. Your passion is to do some research and develop a particular drug. But if this interdependence is not there, where is the purpose? Where is the purpose of your work? If others are not going to use your product, is there any use of developing it? If there is no need of that product, is there any use of it? So the purpose itself misses when the interdependence lacks. So we get our purpose of life because we depend on others. Why do we want to excel in civil services? Means why do we want to achieve civil service? Is it because that gives us happiness? Is that the only reason? Is it because that it gives you power or wealth or prestige? Is that the reason? But even for that, you are depending on others. For example, today, you are depending on this particular class to get knowledge on this year's paper. In the similar fashion, in a particular day, you are depending on many people, family members, the outside society. So at every point, we depend on each other. So in these circumstances, we cannot say that I will be on an island, I will do better. So it's not going to work. That's what exactly the statement is highlighting about. So how you're going to connect it? So connect it with the purpose of life. So one finds the purpose of life when realizes that their connectivity with the others, their connectivity and contribution towards the others. Understood? So that's what you have to write in this particular question. Now, if we look into the next question that we have, attitude is an important component that goes as input in the elopement of humans. Sorry, it's not elopement, guys. There is some mistake here. It's actually empowerment. The entire meaning has changed. Empowerment of human beings. So how to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant? So here we are specifically talking about attitudes with respect to empowerment of humans, and that too specifically how to calculate a desired attitude for public servant. And if you ask me, this is not a new question, because this question was asked multiple times in the exam. So how to develop an attitude, and how to develop a positive attitude, and how to overcome the negative attitudes. Like this, UPSC has asked multiple questions. So it's a straightforward, more or less question. But here you have to talk about how it empowers human beings, how attitude empowers human beings to achieve a greater thing, a better thing. So that's what this question is specifically about. Okay. So in the introduction, you can talk about, let's just say in the introduction, you have multiple things, but you can talk about what attitude is, or what kinds of attitudes are there. And you can give an example if you want, or for instance, you can write. And you can also talk about the importance of attitudes. Importance of, this could be your main body. So importance of attitude in human growth, in human beings as a growth, how it helps, how it empowers us to achieve something. Okay. Next, of course, remember, every time try to give the examples. Examples is very, very crucial. Next, how to build a suitable attitude. How to build a suitable attitude. In the attitude chapter, you will be reading about this particular topic. So how to build an attitude, or how to overcome a specific attitude or negative attitude. So these things that you will be learning in the ethics subject itself. So it's more or less like a straightforward question that we can say that we have to address here. Okay. Now moving to the next question. In case of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence help to overcome the same without compromising the ethical or moral stand that you are likely to follow? Critically examine. Critically examine. Now, question is what we can say is an analytical based question, because they are trying to connect 2-3 topics to see what you have understood about these topics and how you are using that in the real life. Here they are talking about crisis of conscience. First one. Next, we are talking about emotional intelligence. So you need to know what is crisis of conscience, you need to know what is emotional intelligence, and you need to connect both of them. So how one faces crisis of conscience? What actually crisis of conscience is? When you have to take a particular decision, so that society or organizational wise is right, but it is against your moral standards, it is against your conscience. So that is more or less we talk about, we say that crisis of conscience. So when you have such crisis, without affecting the society or organizational, or without affecting the self morals, can we handle in the middle path? Can we come to a possible or a good solution by using emotional intelligence? By using emotional intelligence to overcome such problems. For example, if you ask me, let's just say that child marriages. Now the societies or the areas where child marriages are practiced, so that is a part of their traditional ones, correct? Their traditional values. But modernity or modern values says that we cannot go for child marriages, correct? It's not the right one. Now, being a public servant, you have two options. First one is to follow modernity, means use the force them to not to go for child marriages. Second one is traditional. Since you might need the support of the locals to implement a government scheme in a proper way, so you overcome few, or you overlook a few elements that means overlooking or ignoring to a certain extent. By the way, ignoring is never an option for a civil servant. So this option is completely ruled out. But using force is not always a fruitful one. Rather, we have to make sure that the attitude gets changed. So how can we do that? Without forcing them, we need to make sure that they come out of these traditional aspects and they move to the modernity views. How can we do that? So one part of emotional intelligence is understanding the emotions of others and trying to control the emotions of others. Means trying to or using persuasion or social influence as a technique to control the emotions of others. So for this reason, that we use emotional intelligence to solve this problem. That is perseverance. Sorry, persuasion. Not perseverance, I'm sorry. So persuasion. So how can we use persuasion to change the attitude of the people so that they themselves come to the modern lines and does not follow the child marriages? So in this way, you're not forcing. So you still get the support of the locals when you're implementing some other scheme. So for a better, what we say, grassroots implementation. And at the same time, you are following the law. Understood? So emotional intelligence is a very, very powerful tool. So emotional intelligence is basically talks about how do we understand our emotions? How do we control our emotions so that we can be best version of ourselves? Then how can we best understand the emotions of others? And how can we manipulate them or control them to maintain a better social relationship? So this is what emotional intelligence specifically talks about. Okay, so that is exactly the need of the question. How can we overcome such kind of dilemmas without affecting either the society nor the law? Understood? Okay, so going to the next question. The next question talks about refugees should not be turned back to the to the country where they would face persecution or human rights violation. Examine the statement with reference to ethical dimension being violated by the nation claiming democratic with open society. Now we say that let's just say India is a democratic society, or we can, so many countries claim that they are democratic societies. You can take USA as an example. So, or UK for that instance. So any such country that's a democratic country, you can take an example. Now, whenever refugees comes to your country, so what does the country do? Either they give the asylum or they send them back, right? Now, if they're giving the asylum to those, it's fine. But when we cannot accommodate them, the statement says that we cannot send them to a place where their life is at stake, where their human rights would get violated. Now, countries, in the name of national interest, or in the name of national security, they deport these refugees to the home country. Now, how can we justify this? Is it right to deport them back, or is it not? So what kind of ethical dilemmas that one would face? That is the need of the question. That is exactly what they're asking. Now, being a democratic country, we need to give importance to human lives. But when we talk about humans, are we talking only about the citizens? Or are we seeing the human race? Which one? So you can take up the Rohingyas issue. You can take up any issues, Mexico and US border issues. So you can take up anything, or the recent Syrian issues, the refugees that are being migrated to European countries. So any one particular or any two particular instances that you can choose, and you can say that these are the things that are getting compromised and these are the things that have to be done. Understood? But remember, use the practical or real examples. So that makes your answer from general to particular or authentic. Okay. So if you keep saying that one should not do it, it violates that, it violates this, but that is a generalistic answer. Our job is not to write the generalistic answer, rather very specific answer we need to write. Okay. So that's why take a very good example and stand your point. Cool. Now let's talk about the next question. The next question that we have is, should impartial and being non-partisan be considered as indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? Discuss with illustrations. That's the question. Come again. Should impartiality and non-partisan be considered as indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? Discuss with illustrations. Now, this again, I have to say, it's not at all a new question. Time and again, on these two particular values, UPSC asked many a time. So nearly 3 times that it has asked on these particular values. So obviously that we know on when we talk about the preparation. So in the one chapter called as aptitude and foundational values for civil services or civil servants, so we read about few foundational values. 2 of such foundational values are impartiality and non-partisanship. Impartiality and non-partisanship. So how can one be impartial and neutral? So not partisan, not engaging with any political party. So how does it benefit the society? How does it benefit the overall bureaucracy? Why it is required? If one favors one side, so what are the possible effects of it? So that's what this question is about. But remember, again, they're asking about examples. Okay. So for these things, I would recommend that instead of looking for the examples all the time and the exam hall, what you need to do is when you're preparing, so prepare in such a way that you take the real life examples from the newspapers or from the news channels, write those people's name, maybe retired bureaucrats or the present serving bureaucrats. So you might be heard about the person called as Ashok Kemtha. You might have heard his name. He's a very famous one. For this reason, he is famous, that he's a person with integrity. He, if you know him, so you might have observed that he got transferred nearly more than 50 times in his career because he was not compromising. He was completely impartial. He was not favoring any one particular one. He was absolutely neutral. What is required to be done, he used to do it. Right? So that's why we read such persons as role models in these kind of cases. So that's what your task is, to use that knowledge and write it here. Use the examples. Try to prepare such examples during the preparation itself. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. That is an independent and empowered social audit mechanism is an absolute must in every sphere of public service, including judiciary, to ensure performance, accountability, and ethical conduct. Now, this is very, very specific question. Actually, I have to say, it's a question from your public administration topic, or from public administration and governance topics of ethics. They are specifically asking about social audit. So what is a social audit? How people participate in evaluating in someone's performance, be it a district collector, be it a particular organization, be it anyone. So how people participate to evaluate, to audit someone's performance. So that is social audit. But for that, we need a very good mechanism to do it, the standard operating procedures to do it. So, and empowered citizens to do it, right? So what you need to write in this one is the importance of this particular social audit. Importance of this social audit. So in introduction, you will be talking about what is social audit and how it is being practiced in India. Next, you are talking about the importance of social audit. Specifically, when we talk about public services, in that how social audit impacts the performance. So for example, our approach before 1990 is different and post 1990, especially post 2000 is different, because being a public servant, the approach towards citizens has changed. Now we are citizen centric. Citizen centric means we are keeping citizen as the center of the problem, and we are trying to consider that what the citizen exactly wants. We are trying to identify it, and we are trying to provide that for the citizen. Instead of providing what we have and then asking the citizens to take it. Let's just say I have 100 fans and I'm distributing these 100 fans to the citizens when they don't have the food. It doesn't make any sense. So if the citizens' need is for the food, I need to provide them with the skills to acquire the food, or I need to, for the short run, I need to provide with the food, right? So this is citizen centric. So we are considering citizen as the center, and then we are providing what the citizen needs. And when you do it, obviously the mechanism or the procedure and these things has to be strong enough so that accountability and transparency exist. For accountability and transparency, it's a very powerful tool is social audit. Social audit. So social audit has so many benefits. So it goes for the accountability, and it goes for the transparency, and it reduces the corruption. And of course, it increases the performance of the civil servants or public servants. So likewise, we have many benefits. So we need to write those things. And they are asking specifically to elaborate it. Okay. And when one more thing, even though they didn't ask, please give the examples. Understood? Examples are must here. In every question, for that matter, examples are must. So this is the beauty of this paper, that you can take up the real life examples and you can use it straightforwardly. Okay. But when you are writing the example, one more thing, guys, if you are writing something from your real life examples, don't write in the active voice sense. Rather prefer the passive voice. So I would do that. I have seen this. Instead of this, this has happened and this is happening. So try to write it in the passive sense instead of the active sense. Try to use a very, very little I. Try to avoid this. It's not advisable to always write that I would do that, I would do this, I prefer this, I have seen this. So avoid such things. Okay, this is what is happening in the society. So this is the possibility. This could happen, that will happen. So likewise, as a third person that you are writing instead of the first person. Okay. Now let's go to the second question of sixth one. That is, integrity is a value that empowers the human being. That empowers the human being. So how integrity empowers the human being? So that's the question. How integrity empowers the human being. So we have seen a similar question before also. Here we are specifically talking about one particular example. Sorry, one particular value, that is integrity. For this, when we talk about introduction, so you will be writing about what is integrity. Okay. Integrity is possessing the highest moral standards and sticking to it. Means under any circumstances, you're not letting go of your moral standards. You're not compromising on your moral standards. Even if it is at the cost of your life, even if it is at the cost of your job, you're still choosing your moral standards instead of bending for these political pressures or workloads. So that is what we call it as integrity. Now, integrity, when you're writing, integrity would be at the value based or value level and the conduct level. So different people have different integrity standards. Some people have a very high integrity and some people have very low conduct. This is because everyone possesses the value, but when it comes to the action, they do not perform it. They do not implement it. Understood? So that is what you have to write here. How using of those moral standards that you have in your actions and how it empowers you to achieve something. How it empowers you to do a particular task in a better manner. That is exactly the need. Okay, and again, they are specifically asking about examples. So entire paper, we can see examples, examples, and examples. Okay, so that concludes our theoretical part actually. Now what we have is the second section of the paper deals with the case studies. We have multiple case studies, and each case study has a different dilemma, and we have to address these case studies. In the class, in some other video in the next sessions, we would deal with, I would explain you what are the basic steps that kept in mind while dealing with case studies. Like for example, how to observe the facts, how do we maintain the boundaries that are provided within the case study, and simple steps that are required to solve any case studies. So these things that we will discuss in the subsequent classes. Okay, and coming to today's session means the case studies that are given in the 2021 CSE paper. The case studies are very general and very normal in the sense that they are not way too difficult, because the options are more or less visible. When you read the case study itself, the options are more or less clear. It is just that how you are using that knowledge that you have and how you are trying to get a balanced version of the decision. Sometimes you have to choose between the personal interest and the private interest, personal interest and the public interest. So when you're doing that, how can we maintain a balance there? It's like that. Now, if you observe the previous year's questions and this year's theoretical part, usually in the theoretical part, we used to get a questions on conflict of interest, directly or indirectly. We used to get such questions. But this year, they didn't ask conflict of interest in the question, theoretical question part, but rather they have placed 2-3 case studies on conflict of interest. Not just one, there are 2-3 case studies that we see here now. So it is based on the conflict of interest. So how we are going to handle such things that we'll see. Now I'll give you an overview of these case studies. I'll give you what are the more or less ethical dilemmas, or where you need to look for, or what all things that you need to address when you solve a case study. Okay. Now, whenever you're solving a case study, keep few steps in mind. First one is observing the facts very carefully. So what the facts is, we can never ever go against the facts. We will get to know the facts if we observe the case study, and we will get the boundary as well. It is our job to be within these boundaries. Okay, so we can never ever cross the boundary. Do not assume something outside which negates the case study, which negates the facts. Okay, and also try to understand, after finding the facts, try to understand the questions. The questions are very tricky in the sense that it contains two things. One is the question demanding a single action, or is the question demanding a course of action? Sometimes they will ask that what is the course of action that you would take? This is a straightforward question, but most of the time they don't do it. They'll ask what action or actions that you will take. And as such, you need to realize, is it a one-step solution kind of case study, or is it multiple steps involved? When there is multiple steps involvement, then make sure that your multiple steps are in sequence. Remember, sequence is very, very important when you are performing course of action. Which one that you do first, which one that you do next plays a very crucial role. I'll tell you an example. Let's just say on your way to the office, when you are going hurriedly for your meeting or something, you have seen some of your friend met with an accident or so. Meeting is important, and your friend's health or life is also important. So at that place, most of the people would say that it is a two-step solution, not just one. One is joining the friend, another one is attending the meeting, correct? Now, what is the sequence? Will you attend the meeting and come back to save the friend? So at that, you are giving importance to the meeting, which is again required, of course. But is the sequence is the right one? It has a problem that here the sequence is not at all correct, in this sense that you need to make sure that the life weighs little more than the meeting, but give importance to the meeting as well. So that's why we can save the life of the person, but we cannot stay with him for the whole day. So pick your friend and join him in a nearby hospital, and then you will be going to the meeting. Correct? So in this way, you would be able to save your friend, and you will be able to, what we say, attend your meeting. So here the sequence is very, very important. If you flip the sequences, the entire meaning might change. So things could go wrong. So be careful with the sequences. Okay. So having said that, let's go to the questions. So in this question, we are talking about a young civil servant named Sunil. He is being a very tough, and there are so many things that have been the case studies given. But when we go to the real case study, he has been posted at a place where sand mining is rampant, and these sand mining people are using the local musclemen to bully, or what we say, exert pressure to control, to induce fear in the local tribal people. Now it's your job to handle this situation. But when you're handling it, when you're going for rides, you have seen that the mafia are reacting in an aggressive mode against you, and they put your family under constant surveillance, and they're stalking your family, and they have threatened you for life as well. So under such circumstances, what you would do? So this is what the case study is demanding. So this is what exactly the case study is. And if you look at the questions that are being asked, so there are three questions. First question talks about identify the different ethical options, the different options available to the Sunil in attending its situation, and critically evaluate each of its options listed, and which of the above that you think that most appropriate. Now, under this questions, under these kind of questions, the usual way of writing is to listing the options. Some people would say that first they'll list all, maybe 4 possibilities that they are listing, and then here they'll give you the question A, and then they'll come to the question B, and they rate that first point and merits, demerits. Second choice, merits, demerits. Now this is how they address this question. So it's right, but it's the problem that you're wasting word limit. There is a lot to write in this kind of questions. So it's better instead of this, if you opt for, let's just say, once again. Okay, so if you ask what would be the right way is when you're listing the options, right? The first one, whatever the option that one has, write the merit and demerit there itself. Merit, demerit, there itself. Address it. Do not choose it, but write it. Next, second option, merit, demerit. Third option, merit, demerit. And when you're writing like this, do not write extensively, like for merits 5 points, for demerits 3-4 points. Don't do that. You have a very, very limited window here. Okay, so write very concisely, very proper merits and demerits, maybe 2 or 3. That's it. And even when you're writing 2 or 3, it should not be more than 1 line. So keep it in mind that when you're writing merits, make sure that you're preserving the word limit. Okay, because the core is yet to be addressed. The main question is the third one, that is which one that you're choosing out of all these 3, which one that you're choosing and why, right? So after writing all the available options and merits and demerits, then comes can write the C question, and you can write a particular option proves to be better in these aspects, and it addresses these ethical standards, and which is why I would, or Sunil should, prefer going ahead with it. So in this way, you have to address it. Now, coming to the point of case studies, one more point, let me tell you people. In every case study, there will be one core issue. In every case study, there will be one core issue. and there will be few periphery issues. One core issue and multiple periphery issues. Most of the students address only core issue, but you have to address the periphery issue as well. Remember that. That only gives the holistic solution for your problem. Now, what is the core issue in this particular case study? The core issue is to mafia. Will you accept their pressures and will you take no decisions at all? Or will you not accept their pressures, or will you not bend for their pressures and you go ahead with your rights and this thing? So which one that you will do? So this is the core one. Now, what is the periphery? The periphery ones are your family issues. Your family is constantly under surveillance and stalking and happening. So how you are going to tackle that? Next, the threat to you, your threat, your security. So this is another periphery one that you are. Next one is fear of tribals. Fear of tribals and issue of Muslim. See, there are multiple periphery issues. And not only that, there is one more, how you're going to address this issue so that in the future, it should not happen again. So, for example, development issues, development aspects. So how you're going to involve these tribals in this present, in stopping this or in the developmental activities so that things will not happen in future. So these are the periphery ones. So remember, you have to address the core and you have to address the periphery. Now, when you are addressing core and periphery, of course, it takes multiple actions, right? So instead of writing course of actions in the choices, when you're mentioning list of choices, when you're doing this, do not write the course of actions here, because in this question, only one particular thing talks about. So you can write one action and merits, demerits, but when you are choosing one action, choose the action, tell why and both, then tell that other actions that you will do. For example, addressing the Muslim issues or taking away the fear of the tribals and security of the family. So other actions that you would do. So that tells us that you're addressing the core thoroughly and you're addressing the periphery issues also in a proper manner. So this is how you have to do it. Understood? Not just for this case study, for every case study. So this is how it has to be done. Clear? Now, if we look at the next one, again, it is, see, the previous one also has the conflict of interest issue. The previous one also has conflict of interest issue when the life of or your personal life, your private life, like your family and your security, versus performing your public duties, your official duties. So it involves a conflict of interest. Then if we talk about the next case study, that also involves the conflict of interest. Let's see. So you're a vice principal in this one, and the problem with the vice principals is they are in line with they're in line to become the principal. So your actions have to be very careful, otherwise you will not become the principal. So here they are trying to put you in the same dilemma. That is, you are a vice principal and your principal is not there, and you are about to become a principal. But this promotion depends on one particular issue that you are facing today. On one fine day, so during final examinations, a surprise squad caught two students cheating in the exam. And one student is a son of the local politician who brought your university, your college into one particular reputed university. Under that, he brought you that. Next, the second one is the major financial contributor, a businessman who financially contributed a lot to your particular college. So these are the two people, and their children are the ones that are doing these malpractices. Now, we also figured out that one of the lecturers are also helping these students. Now, what you would do under such circumstances? Your college asked you to handle this scenario properly and not to take it public, because it might damage the reputation of the college. And of course, if things goes bad, the politician would take the proper steps, or the businessman might stop the funding. So these issues are there. So considering the reputation of the college and the financial burden that it could get, or the lives of the other students that are there, so considering the weighing that to your personal, again, you're about to become the principal, so how you're gonna act, or what way that you're gonna act that impacts your promotion. So all these things are there. So your private interest versus the public duties, your private values, virtues. So whatever that it says that no, I have to take the students to the proper action phase. Means maybe if the rule says the prohibition, so we have to go with the prohibition and debar them from the college and these things. So whatever it may be the situation. So it is your personal values or your personal life versus your organizational values or your organizational interest. So again, it's a clear-cut case study of conflict of interest. Now the questions that they are asking is, what are the ethical cases that are ethical issues that are involved here? See, one more point, in every question that they are asking, what are the ethical dilemmas that we are facing? Okay. Remember, almost in all the questions this year, they have asked what are the ethical dilemmas that you are facing. So it's the public life versus private life, or it's the organizational values or organizational interest versus the person's integrity. So these kind of dilemmas that you have to write. Next one is critically examine the options available to the vice principal and what option will you adopt and why. So which one that you will, so you have to list out all the available, all the available options, and you need to address the issue properly. But before we go there, let's talk about what is the core one here. What is the core issue? What is the core issue, people? The core issue is whether you will let go of these students or not, or whether you will, punish culprits or not. For the sake of organizational interest or organizational pressure or political pressure, whatever it may be the thing. So will you punish the culprits or not? Now, what are the periphery things? There are some few crucial periphery elements that UPSC has placed. UPSC has placed so that you feel the pressure. Means they are trying to put you in one corner. They are exactly pushing you to one corner. For that, they are using some obstacles. They are using some instruments to put you in one corner. So those principles are, first one is the background of students. Background of students. That is, see, people might be thinking that no, I should not do this. I should not punish them. I should not punish them because that if I do it, the politician might do this, or businessman might stop the funding. Now, I'll ask you one simple question. Since they are the sons of politicians and businessmen, you're thinking this much. If they are the sons of a very common man, will you not perform this action that you're choosing? Then why you're discriminating based on their economic status or political status? Isn't it? It's one core area that they are trying to fix it. If your action resembles that, you're leaning, you're doing all these things because you don't want to face political agitation or business wrath on your college. If you're doing this, then which means that you're discriminating between the students, which is wrong. Correct? So that is one corner that they are trying to put you in. Next one is your private promotion, your private interest. Your private interest. So they're trying to put you in your, your personal promotion at stake. Now, if you do particular tasks, you might face the wrath. So that's what they're saying. You might not be the principal. Your actions should have the balance. It should not affect your promotion, and it should not affect your ethical standards as well. So you have to find a balance between these two. Then there is one more, ethical periphery, That is, the students' union are protesting outside, sir. Students' unions protesting outside because they want a strict action on these students and that lecturer who is helping them. So this is one more corner that they are trying to put you in. Now, in all these, what you are going to do, you have multiple corner points. How do you escape these corner points to come to the real position? That's what matters. That's what gives. You have multiple options here. Either you can go by the rule book by saying that whatever happens, even if my promotion is at stake, I'm not going to. Or wait a second, there is one more aspect, that is reputation of college. The reputation of college. Next one is financial impact. So there are multiple, corner points. So how we are gonna address this? You have multiple options here, students. One is sticking to the rule book. So I would stick to the rule book at any case. I will not let anyone do the malpractices. If the book says, if the rule says that they are debarred, so they are debarred. If the rule says that they are suspended, so they will be suspended. So this is one. But here, though your personal integrity will be met, but there are so many other things that are not being addressed properly, because you will be out of principal race, you might be, or your institution might face a financial burden. But if you are choosing this particular option, then there are two core areas that you need to address. Apart from sticking to what you said so far, first one is financial burden that you have to handle. Second one is reputation of the college. In your answer, you need to mention that financial burden. I will stick to the legal book. If it raises the financial constraints on the institute or on the college, I would raise a fundraising program. I would start a fundraising program to supplement the college finances. Either the students or parents or maybe outside world could fund us to sustain ourselves for the sake of the people. This is one possible solution, but you're addressing the periphery issue. Next, when we talk about the reputation, if the case study is trying to tell you that if it goes outside, people of the opinion that it would damage the reputation of the people, reputation of the institute or the college. Now, your job is to convince them that the reputation will be damaged if we protect the culprits. We need to try to change the attitude of the people, attitude of the college, or attitude of the administration by saying that protecting the culprits will send a wrong message, will damage the reputation of the college. Rather, if we convey that a strict action has been taken based on the crime or based on the conviction, then that sends a very positive image to the outside world, and it develops the trust in the people to send their children to the college, so which in turn raises the reputation. So you can address this issue by changing the attitude of the people. Understood? Is that clear? Now, coming to the next question or next case study. This case study is talking about there will be an elevated corridor. There will be a prestigious project which is started, and they are trying to finish it off. They are trying to finish it off in 2 years by June 2021, because the elections are round the corner by then. The chief minister wants to inaugurate this particular project and portray in the elections that it is their success, more or less. So that's the case study. But the dilemma here is, in a random checkup, you figured out that few pillars are minor cracks. Few pillars have minor cracks. Since these cracks are minor, your superior or your supervisor told you to ignore those cracks because the minister wants this project to be done, and so, whatever it may be the thing. So they try to put you in a corner that ignore it and go ahead with the project. But according to you, it is this minor, though it seems like a minor, it would create a lot of problems in the future. So it might endanger the lives of the people itself. It's very dangerous one. That's what you feel. Now, under such circumstances, what you would do? So that's the case. Now, under this case study, there are 4 questions, which means that addressing each question itself consumes a lot of words. Within 250 words, you have to write it. So remember, lot many things to write. You have to write it very concisely. So no chit chatting. Now coming to the point, under the given conditions, what are the options available? Options available with the project manager, which we have been seeing in the last few case studies, the same question. And what are the ethical dilemmas faced by the project manager? If you are the project manager, what dilemmas that you will face? And since he is the project manager, what ethical dilemmas that particular person is facing? So integrity versus the lives of the people and the work pressure, the political pressure, whatsoever. You have to write those ethical dilemmas. Next, what are the professional challenges likely to be faced by the project manager and his response to overcome such challenges? Professional challenges, being your supervisor, so he is asking you to do some particular thing. If you do something against him, you are damaging the relationship between you and your superior. That would create a problem. And if you don't, you will be sending a wrong message to the next line, means your subordinates, and you're endangering your entire professional career itself and to the people's lives as well. So those are the challenges that you are facing and how you're going to overcome it. So one such thing is persuasion. Second such thing is by finding to see persuasion. And second such thing is finding a report. You will frame a comprehensive report and submit it to the higher officials above your present one, or ask the chief minister or whoever to take care of this particular report. And the other one is before filing the report, and maybe you will send this particular material to lab testing, or you can, under your personal capacity, you might be thinking that I would go ahead with deconstruction, means I would go ahead for demolition and reconstruction. With additional men or with additional manpower. So you might be suggesting that whatever it may be the thing that you suggest, remember, try to think in the multiple angles and give it a wholesomeness. Okay, instead of trying to write it from only one angle, so look at it from the multiple dimensions and look for the multiple issues that you might face and address that each and every one of it. Okay, next one, what can be the consequences of overlooking the observation raised by the inspecting team? Obviously, if you overlook, what are the public property would be damaged, might be damaged, or even people's life would be at stake and your personal integrity would be damaged, or even if you overlook, you might be having a cordial relation with your supervisor, with your superior, but if something goes wrong, they turn the tables against you. So it is going to create your private and professional career at stake. So that is why overlooking is not an option in this case. Clear? Next one, the question is about coronavirus and how do you handle that? So we all know that from past 2 years we are seeing that repetition of coronavirus, and the UPSC seems to pulled by the waves, and it also felt compelled to give a case study on it. So this time the case study is about if you are a public servant, if you are head of some public hospital. Now you are seeing that the cases are increasing drastically. The staff members are very less. So you need multiple resources, but we do not have multiple resources, and government implemented so and so lockdowns, and because of which the things are increasing, with creating problem, blah, blah, blah. So the case study is pretty much something that we experienced for 2 years. So this is not the major part. The major part is the questions. What are your criteria and justification for putting clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to the patients knowingly or knowing fully well that it is highly infectious disease and resources and infrastructure are limited? See, we have at every hospital, we will have the clinical and non-clinical staff. Now, since there are resources are very, very less, we have to use each and every available resource. We don't have the leisure that I will use only partial of it, I will use only set of it. So that is not possible. It's not an option that we have here. So obviously, what has to be done? We have to use a clinical and non-clinical staff. Clinical and non-clinical staff. But the question is asking, what is the criteria, on what basis that you will, use this staff properly? And how do you justify that? It is the life of the people, right? It is highly infectious. So how do you justify using these or segregating their work? So one such option is, see, when we talk about clinical and non-clinical staff, for clinical staff, it's fine. But when it comes to non-clinical staff, when we have to use it for more or less a slight of clinical purposes, so what you need to do is you need to give training to them. You need to give training to them. So by which proper training, they could be a viable solution. More or less, we have during pandemic, we have ASHA workers, right? We have ASHA workers. We tap that resource so that the service delivery will be more effective. So that we can use. So training of the non-clinical staff. Next thing, they said that the resources are absolutely limited, right? Absolutely limited. So if the hospital area itself is very small, then how can you accommodate the thousands of the people that are coming in? Now, you have an answer ready-made in last 2 years. That is home quarantine. Home quarantine. And self-isolation. Self-isolation, home quarantine, and containment zones. Containment zones. Now, this is in the hands of police, more or less. So we have to coordinate that this area is being infected to police. So they will take care of the containment zone. When it comes to self-isolation and home quarantine, self-isolation that people will do. Now, home quarantine is something that is in your hands. That is, since you cannot accommodate the people in the hospital, so you are sending back the people who are asymptomatic or who do not require regular doctor's checkup or inspection. So what you are doing, you are sending them back to their house, but you are empowering, you are training these non-clinical staff, and you are sending them to those houses for providing medicines, providing other medical guidances. Understood? So in this way, you can suggest that home quarantine, and you are using your limited resources, but there you are using unlimited resources of homes. Okay, so you are joining your limited resources and you are using the real or the actual homes of the people itself to provide the service. Since their symptoms are not much, so self-isolation and a proper guidance from the staff itself is good enough with the medicines. So that's what you are going to suggest, more or less. Understood? Is that clear? Now that could be a viable solution because it's a ready-made solution that we have been seeing in the last 2 years. The government did it. It's actually we have to come up. We have to say it as a hybrid solution. Instead of sending everyone to the hospitals and isolating them there, so we are trying to create a containment zones at our houses itself and self-isolation of the people and the things. Next one is, if yours is a private hospital, whether your justification and decision would remain the same way or not. So if you are, let's just say, the head of a private institute, so what you would do? Would your decisions change or would your decisions will not change? But I'll ask you one thing. In the private institutes, you do not have this flexibility, or it's not mandatory on the institute part, on the hospital part, to necessarily serve the citizen. So if it is a public servant, if someone comes to them, it is their official duty to serve them. They cannot reject them. Under any circumstances, they have to serve them. But when it comes to the private hospitals, they can reject. They can say that no. So under such circumstances, and home quarantines are very good with the public services, but not with the private services. They use the resources in a different manner. Their home quarantine option may not be viable. Even if you are suggesting may not be viable, because private hospitals are profit oriented. It's not social oriented or welfare oriented. So that's why, since it does not fetch profit, so this home quarantine option will not be there, but rather what will be there is acquiring more resources. Instead of government hospitals, private hospitals have much larger resource base. Why? They can procure from the market easily, but the government institutions cannot. They need many approvals for it. But when it comes to the private institutions, so they can pull the resources from market. So by giving many benefits to the doctors or enough security for the doctor, and they can pull the latest equipment and latest medicines from the outside world. So pulling of resources is little easier because they have more money and they are not bound by these rules. So that's why there you're focusing on, and remember, instead of highlighting that you are profit oriented, highlight that you will work for the betterment of the people. You are going to work for the betterment of the people, but you are trying to save the life. That's it. You're not highlighting that how much economically that private hospitals exploit the people and the things. So do not do that. Okay. Where the saving of life has to be highlighted. I hope it is clear. Now, coming to the next one, a reputed food product company based in India developed a food product for international market and started exporting the same after getting necessary approvals. The company announced this achievement and also indicated that soon the product will be made available for the domestic consumers with almost the same quality and health benefits. Accordingly, the company got its product approval by the domestic country or competent authority and launched the product in Indian market. The company could increase its market share over a period of time and earn substantial profit both domestically and internationally. However, the random sample test, here comes the tricky part or the dilemma. The random sample test conducted by inspecting team found that product being sold domestically is variance with the approval obtained from the competent authority. Means the way that they said that we are going to produce this product in this with this quality and with this standards, but they are not maintaining that standard. On further investigation, it was also discovered that the food company was not only selling products which were not meeting the health standards of the country, but also selling the rejected export products in the domestic market. This episode adversely affected the reputation and profitability of the company. Now, that's the question. Now, what you are going to do? What is the ethical dilemma here? See, here the problem is the company said that we are releasing a particular product in the international market and they got the same. And they said that we are releasing the same in the domestic market with the same quality, and government gave approval as well. But after certain time in the checks, it has been found that they're not doing that. The product is of inferior quality. They're not maintaining the standards. And they're selling for making profits and these things. But one thing to understand here is, see, selling inferior quality products is there in India. In India, selling a little inferior, a little bad quality product is there in India, because the same product that you are getting in the free market is, let's just say, close to MRP, but in your supermarkets in other places, they are getting it for substantially less price. Substantially very less price. Correct? Now, it's been allowed in the market for this reason that at least they are maintaining proper standards. The standards of the product are maintaining minimum quality. So that's why, though they are selling at a lesser prices of little inferior quality, the government is allowing it. But this particular case study talks about your standards are below accepted level and you are doing it. So which means that it is blatantly illegal. It is blatantly illegal what you're doing. So what actions that you would take by realizing that it is illegal? So that's what the question is asking about. Okay. Now coming to the next case study, Pawan is a working officer, and as part of his, this case study is mostly talking about he is a very good officer and he is working, but he's having a boss who is little friendly or very less friendly with this Pawan, and this boss is creating nonsensical problems with Pawan or to Pawan. So time and again, Pawan is getting frustrated because of this boss employee issue. He's getting so frustrated that when he is coming back to the home, so he is getting reflected with those emotions at the family itself. Means he is not behaving properly with the wife. He's not behaving properly with the family. So those things, it's jeopardizing his private life as well. His official duties and his mood is jeopardizing his personal life as well. So that also created a lot of problem in the family sphere. It usually happens with many people. And finally, he became mentally, or it affected or it damaged his mental health. So this is the case. In this, observe one thing, that usually when you go for the work, you have to leave the work tensions outside only, and you have to come home with free of tensions. You should not let your official tensions interfere with your private life. Same is the case with the reverse direction. So when you are performing, when you are public actions, when you are working outside, do not let your emotions at the family, your emotions with the family interfere with the official duties or disturb you emotionally or mentally that interferes with your public duties. So that should not be the case. So this case study is clearly talks about the lack of emotional intelligence on two persons' part. One is the boss who lacks the leadership quality. The second one is this Pawan, who does not understand his own emotions and who is not controlling his own emotions properly. So he is letting his emotions interfere in his private life. So conflict of interest is also arising, and so and so. So in this case study, you need to make a strike. You need to suggest a striking balance between, or you need to talk about the importance of creating a gap between the private life and the public life, and how to maintain a healthy private and public life using the emotional intelligence. So it is a clear-cut example of emotional intelligence. Okay, so that's what it is. And coming to the paper, so we have seen now what the questions are and how to answer those questions. And in the classroom, we will discuss specifically about what exactly and how exactly that you need to write, what wordings, and what are the technical things that falls under it. So these things that we will discuss in the class. Now, one other thing that I need to bring I need to bring your attention to is the importance of this particular subject. Now you have seen the paper. Most of the questions, even if you didn't prepare, you still think that you can write at least, let's just say 50 to 100 words. You can at least write few examples from your real life without even preparation. This particular notion is creating problem. It is a very known subject to every individual. Because it is very known subject, people neglect this particular subject. They give out 3 days, 5 days, 1 week, or 2 weeks of time before the mains exam, and they prepare hurriedly and they just write it. But this is not at all a right approach. Let me tell you why. Because This subject plays a very, very crucial role. If you want to be in the final list, you need to be thorough with this particular subject. So let me bring you that particular importance of this one. Now let me give you a little statistics here from the previous years. Do you know how? Do you remember that the cutoff of 2020? Have you seen the paper? Means the final notification where UPSC mentioned that the pre cutoff was 92.5, whereas mains cutoff was 736 and final cutoff was 944. So this was this year's 2020 cutoff. Now, if you observe the final list of candidates, 2020 final list of candidates, the first ranker scored 1054 marks. The 10th candidate, means 10th ranker, scored 1028. And the 100th candidate scored 984. 200th candidate scored 962. 300th candidate scored 949. And 400th candidate or ranker scored 931. Observe the difference, people. It is 18 marks of difference. This one, 13 marks of difference. This one, so 22 marks of difference. And if we say these two, so we have a little considerable amount. So 54 plus 16, so 60, sorry, 70 marks of difference. Now with just 10, 15 marks, 100 ranks are being deferred. Means even if you miss 10 marks or even 1 mark, your rank falls substantially. If your rank is falling substantially, obviously you know that the seats of IAS, IPS and IRS are very limited. So if you fall out of those, means if you fall even by 1 rank, you will not get the service. Correct? So that's why we need to try to reach the rank level that we are aiming for. So if you are trying to become an IAS officer from the general category, you need to score less than 90. Correct? So less than 90 means you need to score more than 984, more than that. Now let me talk you the possibility. Now if we see the GS1, GS2 and GS3, GS4, on an average, in the remaining papers, people score maximum 290. Of course, there are some people who score 200, 110 also, but on an average, it is 90. When we talk about ethics, though people score 90 to 100 on an average, but the potential for GS4 is 140 to 160, which you can never imagine with respect to GS1 to 3. It has the potential. I'm not saying for means I have the literal proof with me. Do you remember the first ranker, Pradeep Singh? Pradeep Singh. He scored in essay plus ethics paper. He scored 297 marks, whereas he scored in optional. He scored 293. Means he scored more in ethics and essay paper than what he scored in optional paper. In ethics paper, he scored 162 marks, the highest. No, it is possible. It is not hypothetical any manner. Now, 300 approximate marks, total 600 he has scored. See, your cutoff. You just need 140 marks to clear the mains. Or you need, including the interview, you just need 300 more marks or 350 marks to be in the final list. Or you need 400 marks to be in the top 100. Now, 3 papers, GS 1, 2, 3, along with interview, 400 marks. If you score, you will be in the top 100, means you will get the IAS definitely, provided that you give enough importance to essay, ethics, and optionals. Of course, I agree that everyone try to prepare an optional properly, right? We aim for scoring more than 300. Yes. For that, we prepare for 3.5 months. But let's talk about the ethics and essay. How many days that you have prepared for essay? Tell me. How many days that your seniors or your friends have prepared for essay? How many days that your friends or seniors have prepared for ethics? It is equally important. For 300 marks of optional, you are preparing for 3.5 months. For same 300 marks of essay plus ethics, how many days that you are giving? So that's the problem. We do not do analysis properly. So this is actually a smart approach. If you give good weightage to essay and ethics, you're scoring a little higher. So you can score from 90 to 140, 160. It is possible, means 50, 60 marks in one subject you're trying to increase. So obviously, we can say that you will be ranking ahead of many people. But that is only possible if you give enough attention towards the ethics and essay paper. Specifically ethics in this sense, that don't go by the notion that I know the ethics and I will write it by myself. There are many things that we do not know, that we learn in this particular subject. So if you look at the syllabus, there you have seen that in the first chapter itself, you will learn all the basics. And later you will be learning about the attitude and how to cultivate these attitudes. And you will see that how to use this in a very faster or in a talented manner to solve the problem in the aptitude chapter. And you will look into all the values that are important, or main values that are important for civil servants. Later, you will learn about the emotional intelligence concept, which you can use to excel in private as well as in the public life, including your civil services preparation time. So that is achieved. In next chapters also, you'll be learning about moral thinkers, India as well as the world, to increase your philosophical standard. This one, you can use it not just for the ethics paper, rather you can use the same knowledge in essay paper as well. The ethics knowledge in essay paper or philosophical knowledge in the essay paper. So is also a very good choice that has with us. Next one is ethics in public administration. So whatever that you're learning so far, you're trying to use it in the public administration as well as in the governance. So there you will be learning about conceptual things. What is RTI, what is governance, what is citizen charter, what is work culture. So quality of service, crisis of conscience. You'll be learning about law as ethical guidance. You'll be learning as conscience as ethical guidance. All the things. It's like a very good package that we have. Provided if we study this properly, it will help us not just clearing the exam, but also excel in the career, in the civil services career as well. So that's why ethics is not a subject that we learn. It's like a process that we take up to modify our life. Understood? So I hope it is clear. And if you have any issues, so bring your concerns to us. We will definitely try and assist you. Okay. Looking forward to see you in the class. Bye.